Everybody's had a few close calls. Everybody's got a story. What's yours?
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 24 of Cool Story with David J. MacNeil. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support. This episode features a chat with my friend and neighbor, co-owner and operator of the Costa Rican tour company, Costour, and host of his very own YouTube show, Pepito Live Costa Rica. I'm talking about Mr. Yves Pepito Malette. I wanted to have my friend Yves on the show because after a year and a half of living in Costa Rica, Belinda and I still get a lot of questions about moving here. People are really interested, and I think to a certain extent people have been inspired by our move here and the fact that we're able to work here remotely as digital nomads. We've had a few friends come down to look at properties, and we've got one close friend so far who bought a property down here with his wife. So that's pretty exciting, and it's fun to have some of our friends from home here as well. I wanted to introduce Yves to my audience and to my friends because Yves' show, Pepito Live, really does a great job of sharing a lot of pertinent information about all aspects of moving to and living in this beautiful Central American country we call Costa Rica. That's not something that I do much of on this podcast. This podcast isn't necessarily about Costa Rica. It comes up and all that kind of stuff because it can't help but not, because that's a big part of our lives. We live here. We're planning to live here 6 months of the year, but because of the pandemic, it seemed like a better idea to hang out here at our house and ride the pandemic out. So we'll be talking about that and moving to and living in Costa Rica with my friend Yves. So let's just jump right into it. This is my conversation with Yves Pepito Malette. Hello, Yves. How are you?
Hey, David. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here in my studio today. Oftentimes we do the podcast. Well, usually do the podcasts over Zoom calls and that sort of thing these days, where I can see somebody on a screen, but it's nice to be in the same room as my guest. So thanks for coming over, for walking across the street for
Literally.
Yeah, for the podcast. We live in the same neighborhood here in Las Palmas, in Playas del Coco. Las Palmas is kind of the suburb that we live in Playas del Coco, which is in Costa Rica. And as people who have been listening to my podcast know for a while, my wife Belinda and I moved down here a year and a half ago. We were going to stay here for 6 months, but of course the pandemic hit, and now we've been here for a full year and a half because this has been, as you can attest, a pretty good place to ride out a pandemic.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is probably, Playas del Coco is probably one of the best places to be in the world during such an important pandemic, if we could say.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you, because you've made a similar transition to the one that Belinda and I made. You made the transition with your wife Caroline. You moved from Canada down to Costa Rica. I don't know. I can't recall whether or not when you moved here, you decided you were also going to work here, or whether that came later. But why don't you tell our audience a bit about your background, what you were doing in Canada, and what was the tipping point where you decided this was time for you to pack up and move to Costa Rica?
Yeah, we've been in Costa Rica for just about 7 years now, and time really flies, but no regrets. But when I'm looking back in what brought us to move to Costa Rica, actually, we really enjoyed traveling. So, we would travel every year, different places around the world. And one day we were actually in Mexico on the beach talking with an expat, and she was telling us about her life as an expat in Mexico. And Carolyn and I said, wow, well, if she can do that, why can't we? And because, I came from a background, I was working in the administration aspect of long-term care and healthcare. And I also worked in politics, and Carolyn worked in politics also at the provincial, federal level. And, we both had jobs where we were working like not 7 days a week, we were working 8 days a week, 18 hours a day. And we enjoyed traveling. And so, after that discussion with that expat in Mexico, we were like, wow, you know what, that lifestyle could be for us also. We don't need to be working 8 days a week, 18 hours a day. And why don't we look into that? And we actually started looking at projects and possibilities for Mexico, because we had been going there for 18 years actually, traveling. But and one day on the internet, searching on Google, I bumped into some articles about Costa Rica, and honestly, I didn't know much about Costa Rica. I knew it wasn't an island,
Yeah.
but I didn't know much about the particularities of the country. And so, wow, we discovered Costa Rica, happiest people on the planet, highest life expectancy, the blue zones, and all of those beautiful things. So I came down here for a quick trip, 3 days, and looked at a couple of properties and projects, and went back to Canada and said to Caroline, wow, this is, we got to go down there. And so actually we came down and we explored the entire country over the span of about maybe 8 months, trying to determine, where is it that we would like to live, on the mountains, on the beaches, the north, the south, the east, the west, the Pacific, the Caribbean. And we discovered Playas del Coco. And we loved Coco right from the start. And after exploring the entire country, we ended up in Coco. And no regrets, none whatsoever. And this is home now for us, definitely home.
And the thing that you were saying too, you said that you traveled around the country and you checked out the mountains and the Caribbean side, and for a small country, it's got a lot of different ecosystems. Like is that the word right? Or micro? Yep. It's got it's a rainforest area. It's got its dry area. It's got the Caribbean side has got a very culturally different feel to it, and it really, like in most countries, but for a small country, there's a lot of variety and there's a lot of different lifestyles that you can have within different areas in the country. So when you come down here, that is something that you should do. It's like you did, just travel around a bit and find out.
Absolutely, because honestly, all of Costa Rica is absolutely beautiful. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah.
But there are some communities in Costa Rica where it's really more of a typical lifestyle. And there are some other communities where it's more of a commercial, more touristy lifestyle. And there are other communities where you find a good balance and a nice mix.
Yeah.
Like we have, in my opinion, in Playas del Coco. And that's what I love about it. It's all beautiful. But, the reflection we made when we were going throughout the country was, it's beautiful to look at. It's beautiful to visit. But you have to look at a community from the perspective of, can I live here? Do I have what I want? We all come to Costa Rica for a change of lifestyle and pura vida and, some of those concepts. But, we're still North Americans. We still have a North American way of life. So we were looking at it from the perspective of, do we have everything that we need to be happy?
Yeah.
And we found Playas del Coco, and here we are.
Yeah, because this town has a good balance of tradition, but a tradition of tourism, of the kind of economy. It's been a fishing village for a long time before it was a tourist area. So you get that mix. You can go to the beach and hang out with other, North Americans or whatever, and you go out on tours and stuff like that. But at the same time, you can see all the guys going out to fish, and make their living. And so it's not an area that's been completely overrun by tourism. There's a good mix, I think, and you feel like you're part of Costa Rica, and not.
The Costa Rican way of life is still very present.
Yeah. And so so you come down, you fall in love with the place, and then what happens next? Did you just sell everything off, or did you have a couple-year plan, or what?
Actually, what we did is because when we were exploring Costa Rica during those 2 years, we were also, because we're both way too young to retire, so we basically needed to have a project and an income and a way of life and everything. So we were like a lot of people wanting to come to Costa Rica. We thought, oh, maybe we could have a little bed and breakfast, a little hotel, or this and that, and we looked at a wide variety of things. And after 2 years, honestly, we hadn't found anything. And a lot of that sort of like searching we were doing from, when we were visiting the country, but also a lot from a distance. And doing that from a distance is, in my opinion, reflecting on that exercise is pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
You have to be on site. It's, moving to a country like Costa Rica, it's a love story. It's all beautiful. So you don't know where it's going to lead you, and when the kick is going to come. So
You're still in the falling in love phase. You're not in the reality of living together phase.
Exactly. And so what we did is we were still looking, and then at some point in time we hadn't found anything. So we decided, listen, if we keep searching, probably from a distance, it probably won't ever happen. So we have to give ourselves a target date. On that target date, if we haven't found anything, we quit the jobs, we sell the house, we pack our bags, we give the kids away, and we move to Costa Rica. And pretty much that's basically, I'm laughing about it, but that's pretty much what we did. The target date came, and that's what we did. We sold the house in 3 weeks, quit our jobs, good jobs, sold the cars, packed up the bags, and we landed in San Jose with 6 boxes and the dog.
Yeah.
I bought a vehicle, and from there we had no clue, absolutely no clue where we were going to end up.
Yeah. No safety net. Well, that's exciting, right?
Yes. I don't know if it's exciting. It's exciting, but it's also a little bit crazy in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's something about making a decision like that. Our decision was similar. We came down and we shopped for a house and stuff like that. But we didn't bring much with us either. But it was making a decision like that is freeing. And then once you do it too, I think you make other decisions that are like that are more, jumping without a parachute kind of thing. And let's see what happens. Once you've done a big thing like that, it kind of changes the way you think about things, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you did look around once you got down here. I know for a fact you looked around for a business and you purchased a business that you didn't stick with that long. Tell us about what that decision was like.
Yeah, well, actually, we were in San Jose and we were looking at different options and opportunities. And going over the internet, we saw this beach bar for sale in Playas del Coco. At the time, it was called Tiki Coco. And we had been here. We knew the business. We knew like the improvements have been made and so forth. And we decided, well, why not? It's a business on the beach. Well, maybe like having a beach bar is not really what we want to do long term, but at least, basically in a nutshell, we're going to be buying ourselves a job. And it's a turnkey operation. You're buying the corporation. You're with the corporation, of course, you're getting bank accounts. So it's making your integration as an expat a lot easier. And basically, so we called up the owner and made an offer, and a week later we were taking over the restaurant on the beach in Coco.
Wow.
That's how
nothing like easing into it.
Yes. And so what happened is we arrived in Coco, took over the restaurant, the bar, started making some improvements, and there were some elements of it that we of course enjoyed, the public relation aspect, people being on the beach, that kind of stuff. But sincerely, we knew right from the start wasn't the type of thing that we wanted to do long term. So what happened is that we pretty much basically just kept the business on the market. And 3 months later, a real estate agent walked in and said, I have an offer on your business. And the offer was really good. So we accepted to sell it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things you told me about that I found was interesting was that you told me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you told me that one of the difficulties is that, like, if you own a bar in Toronto, the liquor prices are quite high, and they don't have all kinds of drink specials. That's just the way the government works. They think of that as promoting sort of alcohol abuse or whatever, to have a lot of specials and deals and cheap, happy hours. You don't really see that anymore. It used to be a thing. In Costa Rica, that's a thing everywhere. And some places will have like a happy hour the last 6 hours where the drinks are 2 for 1 or really cheap. And in a business where you make most of your money on the booze, it's harder to do that in a place here where happy hour is everywhere, right? And you have to compete with the person next door who's selling cheap booze as well.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think that from a business perspective that we were faced with, that we weren't really aware of that aspect of it. We weren't really aware of that when we actually, purchased the restaurant. But yes, there was a big price war on booze, on beer. In Playa del Coco. Also in other communities in Costa Rica, but not so much because some of the business people in other communities, they got together and decided that they weren't going to go below a certain price. But in Coco, it was, you could get a beer for 1,000 colones. So, 1,000 colones. And, as a business owner, I mean, it would cost me 750 colones to purchase that can of beer, for example.
Yeah.
So, you gotta sell a lot of beer to be able to, with 250 colones, which is, the equivalent of 50 cents pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
To do a proper income. So it's a really, really tough. It's a beautiful, exotic type of business, but it's really tough.
Yeah.
From a survival perspective.
Yeah. So you looked at that. You decided not for us. You sold the business, and then how long was it before cost tour?
Actually, what happened is that the day that we accepted that offer, Carolyn and I had a discussion. Was like, well, okay, what is it that we do now? We're back to square one, basically. After 2 years, after buying the restaurant, after being faced, to this reality, now we're out of a job and we're out of a project again. But what happened is that very quickly, Playas del Coco is a very small community. So what happened is that very quickly the word got around, oh, some Canadians purchased that business. So a lot of the Canadian expats, a lot of people from Quebec, because we speak French and stuff, we started to be like the hangout place. And we also started to be sort of like the reference for a lot of people
Right.
who would come to us for advice and stuff. So, or they would come to me and say, could you translate that for me? Or could you, make me some recommendations? Where is it that I could go? What is safe? What is not safe? And we were also helping some Canadian backpackers who would just walk in. We would feed them, and so we were just having fun helping the community. So when the offer came, I said to Carolyn, well, you know what? I think maybe there could be a niche for us. Would be like in tourism.
Yeah.
So why don't basically I offer my services as a guide, and I could create this small tour company and help people and be happy. I could work whenever I want, if I feel like it and stuff. So Carolyn says, wow, that seems like a really cool idea. So I slept on that, and the next morning, actually some Canadian people come to the restaurant and say, hey, you know what, Yves, how are you? And I go, I'm doing great. And by the way, I have news for you. They were people who would come to the restaurant often and say, what's happening? I said, well, guess what? I said, we sold the restaurant. I said, but I decided that I'm going to start a tour company. And the lady says, really? I said, yeah, of course. She said, oh, wow, well, that's good, because there's a group of 5 of us tomorrow, and we'd like to go on tour. Make us a plan for tomorrow. I'm like, no, I can't do that. I gotta do my research. I gotta analyze. I don't want to make another mistake.
Right.
I need to analyze the competition. Check out. She said, no, that's a bunch of whatever. And she says, no, make me a plan for tomorrow. She says, I'm serious, and take us out. And I did that.
Yeah.
And I picked them up the next morning, and we did a plan for the day. We left, and when she got into the vehicle, she looked at me and says, Yves, what's your business name going to be? And I said, I have no idea. She says, think about it. She says, I need something. There must be something in your head. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe this is too simple or maybe too tacky. We're in Costa Rica doing tours, so it's going to be Costour.
Yeah.
And she goes, wow, that's amazing. She says, I love the name. It's short and catchy. And she says, now, my friend, you're in business.
Yeah, and people know right away what it is. There's
Exactly.
there's no guessing about what exactly is the product that they offer.
Exactly.
And now you've got vehicles and beautiful branding, and everybody knows who Costour is.
Yep. So immediately what we did is from that very first tour, because that group of people were staying in a condominium in Playas del Coco, where people get together every afternoon for happy hour around the pool. Everybody, talks. What did you do today? And she's like, oh, this guy from the beach bar, he's selling the beach bar and he's starting the tour company. And I worked every day consecutively for 3 months without doing any advertising.
Right.
And so then we started slowly getting into social media, got the company registered, because that's an aspect of living as an expat in a community like Costa Rica, and that was always very important for us. So we worked very hard to legitimize the company as quickly as possible, and never look back.
Yeah. It's not going to be long until things start. You were telling me today things are starting to open up. You're starting to get more calls about tours. You're doing more tours. Tell our listeners what are your most in demand tours. What do people want to do when they come to Costa Rica that Costa can offer them?
I think the group of people we have around Playa del Coco are pretty much around like 50 years of age and up. So a lot of the tours that we have actually are more centered around nature tours. A little bit of adventure tours, but we have them divided in three categories. So we have adventure tours, we have nature tours, and we have cultural tours. And we try to specialize into these three niches. And a lot of the stuff that we do, because we're specialized in smaller groups, a lot of the stuff that we do is actually personalized. So we have our main tours that we offer. For example, in nature tour, the two most important or popular tours are the Slot Discovery Tour and the Palo Verde Boat Tour, for example, to see animals. And those are tours where it's not into a zoo type of setting. We actually go in nature. It's a rendezvous with nature. It's a rendezvous with the wildlife. And it's always magical every time because that's the approach on it. And we do have the same type of approach with cultural activities, and we have the same type of approach with adventure tours. But a lot of, probably about 50% of what we do are nature tours.
Yeah. We've been on a few different nature tours, and that's a fun thing to do, and people really enjoy the sloth tours. I think a lot of people come down here specifically wanting to see sloths, and
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the beauty, I think, of the area over here, anybody coming to explore, Playa del Coco in Costa Rica, is what I love about this area, about Playa del Coco and Guanacaste, is that it's sort of like a micro representation of the entire country. So you could be here on a holiday. Sometimes people come in this area here on a holiday and say, oh, you know what, I want to go to Manuel Antonio, or I want to go to Monteverde, I want to go here, I want to go there. I say, well, if this is your first time coming to Costa Rica and you're in Playa del Coco, you have everything you want to enjoy from a Costa Rican experience within an hour and a half away, 2 hours away max. You don't need to go very far to enjoy everything that Costa Rica has to offer. We have some of the most beautiful beaches here. We have different microclimates, which is extreme hot weather here on the beach, to an hour and a half away to the volcano, Rincon de la Vieja volcano. We have a different microclimate there where it's rainy, fresher. We have waterfalls. We have, name it. You could go fishing. You could do anything that you would want to do in a country like Costa Rica.
You can sit on a patio in downtown Coco and have howler monkeys overhead.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
We're right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle of it, and it still happens, which is the beauty of it.
Yeah. So, so you guys are operating these tours now. How long have you been running Costour?
Costour is celebrated. We celebrated 6 years, February 10th, which is actually on my birthday.
Nice. Yeah. And so, Costour is a very, very well-known brand and popular company to hire here in town to go out on tours. You guys are full steam ahead. You're probably working just as many days as you were back in Quebec, but I guess it's different because now maybe it feels different. You're working a lot, but
yes, of course, we still work a lot, but we're so much committed, to what we are doing. It's our company. We enjoy what we're doing. We enjoy helping the tourists in as many ways as we can. And if I work so hard, still it's my choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's my company, so I could decide tomorrow morning if I want to reduce the activities, if I want to increase or whatsoever. So I have nobody else to blame but myself now.
Well, and on the other side too, on any given day, your office is the rainforest or a waterfall
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. No, this is a privileged life.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool too. That you guys can offer English tours, and you can do Spanish, and you can do French tours for people visiting from French-speaking countries or Quebec or whatever. So people know that they can that they'll get all the information they need in the language that they speak.
The language issue is very important for us, and I think it's been part of our success in a way. But we've actually done also tours in Italian.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a group one time of people that came from Russia. We gave a tour in Russian, because if you're doing a nature tour, you're doing a bird tour. I mean, 50% of the appreciation is not only seeing the bird, is the behavior, or all the characteristics about this very specific, animal or bird, and so that comes through language. So if the verbal elements is not there, yes, the magic is there with the visual, but if I can't explain what are the particularities of this bird in a way that you could really understand, then it won't be the same experience. So for us, the language element is very, very important for us to be able to provide, the experiences in the native languages of the people visiting.
Yeah. So when people come down to visit, they should look up Costur. And I wanted to pivot a bit here because I want to talk about a pivot that you guys made. And that was that when the pandemic hit and then the flights stopped coming in and the tours stopped coming in, you decided that you wanted to keep busy and you wanted to launch another project that has become well known here amongst the locals, and it's branching. People are listening from all over the place. And you came up with an idea to do a show that you've been calling Pepito Live. And I wanted to talk to you about that, because since we started this journey and we came down here and I started talking to people from here and doing the podcast and talking about Playas del Coco, we've had a lot of people from back home who are starting to think, oh, if these guys can work from there, maybe we can do that, or we can work out some sort of an arrangement where we live partly in Canada and partly down in a place like Costa Rica. And so I think we kind of fired up people's imaginations, and then people started asking us a lot of questions. But on the podcast, we know the podcast isn't a show about necessarily moving to Costa Rica. It just comes up from time to time based on who I'm talking to. But you've really put together a show that addresses all of the aspects of living here, moving here, and talking to experts about how to make that happen. So just tell us a bit about what you've been doing on Pepito Live.
Mm-hmm. Well, Pepito Live is of course a live show. We're broadcasting it on YouTube.
And Pepito is you. That's your nickname.
And Pepito is my nickname. Yeah. And the reason is that for a lot of Costa Ricans or a lot of Latino people, they have a hard time saying Yves, or how is it spelled. So it started actually as a joke, but now it's stuck to me.
Yeah.
And also it means little grandpa. So when my daughter got pregnant, there's a whole story that I wanted my grandchild to call me grandpa. She said, no, that's too old fashioned. So I came up with Pepito, and the whole thing. So now here it is. It's Pepito. So what we do on the show actually is a mix of a couple of little things. A lot of the focus we do is the expat life in Costa Rica, how to come to Costa Rica, what are the legal requirements, that kind of stuff. But there's also another component of the show that is, what are some of the expats that are here actually doing, or some of the success stories, or some of the amazing people that are here, stories of courage and determination, that kind of stuff. But the chunk of it is pretty much always Costa Rica, and also other times other countries in Central America. Also with that, we try to actually use humor. I'm not a professional comedian, and I'm having fun doing the show. I'm having fun producing it.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is that when we use humor, and when I mean humor, generally I will just laugh at myself in different ways, shapes, and form, and people absolutely just love it. And what happened is that one of the reasons I started, doing this is that I think because of a lot of people have been following our story on social media for a long time. I have a huge Facebook following. I actually refuse people on my Facebook page, and a couple of Facebook pages that I actually run. So people, call me all the time, Pepito. You know what? What about this element of moving to Costa Rica? Or that element of moving to Costa Rica? And I get calls and questions on a daily basis. Yet I could be sitting at my computer full time and just doing that. So creating the show was twofold. Was finding a way to respond to this number of inquiries that I'm getting, and also was a way to stay connected during the pandemic, and also a way of having fun. And by introducing humor, I did a show in French just before Christmas on how to make chili guaro.
Yeah.
And
Which
and
is a
it's
very
been,
popular shot down here.
and yeah, which is a shooter down here.
Yeah.
And and I did that with a lot of humor. Not literally getting drunk during the show, but feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah.
And I did a few, goofy things on it. But I received so many, feedback from people say, thank you for making us laugh.
Yeah.
And for me, it's also a way of sharing information about Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking about Costa Rica when I'm preparing the recipe for chili guaro, the national shooter of Costa Rica. I'm talking about the history of Costa Rica. I'm making a goof of myself, but I'm having fun. So that's the formula.
Yeah. And the show, just to clarify, so the show Pepito Live is available on YouTube. You have your own YouTube channel where you've been broadcasting. It's not a podcast. It's not a audio podcast like ours. It's a video format, visual format. And you've jumped into the technology. You've been loving that. You've been doing green screens and split screens and talking to multiple guests. It looks pretty slick. And so, yeah, you've been having a lot of fun with it. Now tell us what are the big questions people are asking you? I have a feeling I know some of the big questions, but why don't you tell me what are the top 5 questions that people want to know about because they're interested in coming down here?
Well, some of the questions are they want to know how easy it is. First of all, they want to know what the process is and the legal aspects of it. That's probably one element. Also, people have a lot of questions about the areas. That's also questions that I get a lot. There's a whole bunch of questions, but a lot of people have questions also about what are the services available? And that's a very good question because when you're moving in a community like that, so what's available in terms of healthcare? How does it work?
Yeah, no, that's a huge one.
So I'm getting a lot of questions also about that. And another very, very popular question is, what's my ability to work there?
Yeah.
So can I just come, down to Costa Rica? I've been a bartender, all my life. Can I come down to Playas del Coco and find myself a job as a bartender on the beach? And so there's sometimes complex, answers to those. But we try to help people as much as we can. The fact is that, if you're coming down to work in Costa Rica as an expat, you have to have, the status of resident to be able to work legally in Costa Rica. There's different ways of getting around that. For example, if you're buying your own business like we did, if you buy your own restaurant, bar on the beach, if you buy a shop downtown, you buy a restaurant, you buy a little hotel, you create, a yoga center, that kind of stuff, anything. I think Costa Rica is full of potential.
Yeah.
So there are limits to what you could do, but yet if you know how to prepare yourself and if you want to, it's endless. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah. Well, and the thing too about coming down to work too is that you have to remind people though that when they come down to work in Central America, that the cost of labor is different than it is back in North America. So even if they got all their ducks in a row legally to work here,
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of people who would refuse to work for 3,000 colones an hour, which is about $5 US.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But those are all the things that you need to think about.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing you guys do a really great job of, the other day you had on our immigration lawyer that we worked with to get our permanent residency papers, Marcella. And she's got a company called the Immigration Experts. And so you were talking to her about recent changes in the laws. And that's one thing that's important to be aware of because like anywhere, when you jump into a process to, maybe move to another country, become a permanent resident, throughout that process, because it can take a while, the rules change. And they constantly change and you have to be on top of it or your lawyer has to be on top of it to figure out what those changes are to make sure that you're able to have all the paperwork you need and that sort of thing. So that's a reality, right?
That's a reality, and we try to, to have Marcella as a guest, and Marcella and other experts also with related, topics of interest, and to keep, providing some updates to people. And one of the problems I think for people wanting to, to move in a country like Costa Rica is when you go out on Google and we go out and search, there's so many sources of information.
Yeah.
And what I found when I was doing my research to come down here is there is also a lot of outdated information.
Yeah.
And there's also a certain number of misinformation. So I think one of our objectives, doing the show and these interviews and having these experts on the show is to provide the latest update. And very often during the show we'll say, you know what, we're trying to break, the misinformation out there and give the facts as they are today. And that's the other aspect of the element, is that things change very quickly in Costa Rica. Costa Rica is an evolving country. And so what was the rule 6 months ago, 2 months ago, last week, today could be changing in a certain direction. So that's why I think the show has a certain value by providing some of these updates to people. And during all of our shows, it's a live show, and people can actually make comments, they can ask some questions, and we even have the technical capacity of bringing somebody in by camera. People are a little bit shy doing that, but that's something that we would like to do more, and so people could actually come live on their camera and ask their questions to our special guests.
Yeah, you've been doing a lot of shows with panels.
Yep.
Where you've got split screens and multiple people discussing a topic. That's been pretty cool.
Yep.
It looks like you're having a lot of fun with it. And by the way, as somebody who comes from a broadcast background, I mean, you've really picked it up quickly and it looks great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you've given me a few advice, which I really appreciated also. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. And we've been kind of watching each other and what we're doing and stuff. And so it's nice that you've invited me to be on an upcoming episode of your show. You're on this podcast. It's great to be able to cross-pollinate our audiences.
Absolutely.
Because like I was saying, that's the thing is I get a lot of questions about this, and I try to answer, what it's like to do, to deal with different factors of moving down here and that sort of thing. But your show is very much a show that people should go check out to find out more the nuts and bolts of how it works, because you've always got experts on talking about it. A lot of the conversations I've had with people are just kind of anecdotal things about, stuff that's going on in our lives. What are some of the most popular guests or topics that have really gotten people sort of inspired watching Pepito live?
Well, I think the most popular topics is definitely immigration issues.
Yeah.
That's definitely right up there. Anything that has to do with becoming a resident as an expat. We have a show that people could register, actually, that we're going to have. Because we do some shows in French, we do some shows in English. And so we have a guest that's coming in a couple of weeks now. And we're actually going to be talking about the cost of living in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
So he will, and that's one of the questions we often have. So people say, well, what does it cost? So Alain is going to be preparing two budgets. Like if you want to live in Costa Rica very modestly, or if you want to live in Costa Rica as, with a North American lifestyle.
Right.
And we're going to have two budgets we're going to present to people. And so we're lining up, and we started the promo on those shows, and in French and English. And, on one of the shows I've got, I think on the French show, I already got over 150 people pre-registered.
Yeah, amazing.
So that's amazing.
And that's the one you're doing with Alain Mouquet, he's a real estate agent down
He's
here,
a
right?
real estate agent, and Alain's been here for 30 years, pretty much, just about. So, I mean, he's, arrived in Costa Rica young and wanting to live the dream, and he's been around and he's been through some situations.
Yeah.
And so he's got a bundle of experience, and he's been here, and he married a Costa Rican. So he's basically considering himself he's a Canadian, but he's basically considering himself a Costa Rican now. But he has a lot of knowledge about the daily lifestyle of Costa Rica.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you pointed that out, and I think it's good for people to understand this, talking about having two different budgets, because some people want to come down here and live the hippie lifestyle, get a little house that probably looks more similar to a Tico house. Tico is a term that we use Tico is a term that the Costa Ricans use to describe themselves, Ticos, and some people, North Americans, will want to come down here and have that sort of dream lifestyle, the hammocks and the little house by the ocean or whatever. And then there's other people that are more closer to what we're doing. Our situation is that I'm doing a podcast, I'm doing broadcast work, I need to send large video files back and forth. We need to live in an area that has infrastructure and has really good internet. We found a company we get 100 megabytes per second, to be able to do this. We can't do that I couldn't do that in Puerto Viejo, where I could have more of a hippie lifestyle, but the infrastructure is not the same. So if you're going to work, that's an issue. Are you, so, but, and then some people come down and maybe they do the hippie lifestyle and find out that's not all it's cracked out to be either, or come down and do sort of more what we're doing, which is a bit more, slightly more North American living for sure in Las Palmas, and figure out maybe they want to downsize or whatever. But it's good to have the pricing and figure out like what the reality is of both of those existences.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so we're lining up with that show, and we're also going to be doing another show. This one's going to be in English with Pablo Arias, and he's a Costa Rican actually, and he actually works for a moving company, but he knows all of the country of Costa Rica, every region, because he's all over the place for his business and stuff. So he knows every little nick in Costa Rica, and so we're going to be doing a show with him that's going to be called Where to Live in Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be dividing the country in different sections, and we're basically going to be discussing sort of like the pros and cons, but mostly the pros of each and every areas, or the differences, if we could say, of each and every area. And that's going to be like pretty cool also, because that's sort of like the result of my entire 2 years experience traveling the country.
Yeah.
So for somebody to go online now and have access to that information, I think is priceless.
Yeah. I mean, part of the adventure is maybe trial and error, but then there's all kinds of things that definitely, situations that can be a little bit painful that people might want to avoid going through. And it's nice for you guys to be able to, share that information with people so that they don't go down those rabbit holes that that are difficult to get out of.
Because the expat life, I think the statistics are that about 50% of the people who actually make a move to live in another country like Costa Rica end up going back home within the first 12 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And just because I think they were probably not very well prepared.
Yeah.
To certain elements. So, like even for Carolyn, my wife, for me, as soon as I, arrived in Playas del Coco, I was home. But for Carolyn, my wife, she spoke very little English.
Mm-hmm.
She spoke no Spanish. She's more of a reserved, more timid person. Not so crazy of the extreme weather. So the adaptation for her, I think after 6 months, if I would have said, "You want to move back to Canada?" she would have said, "Yep, you know what? The bags are going to be ready tomorrow morning." And now we haven't done that, and now she's adapted. But it was really, really, really tough for her.
Yeah.
And so, but a lot of people can't overcome that.
Yeah. That makes me think of when I do a lot of research before I do anything, and I did a ton of research before we came down here. And it was everything from reading books on Costa Rica, reading books, by people who live in Costa Rica who had advice. I forget the name of the lady right now, but there was a lady, I read a couple of her books there, like Live Like a Billionaire. There's some authors down here who've written books about what it's like to live here and the pitfalls and stuff to watch out for. But the one thing, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos. There's all kinds of people down here that have been producing YouTube videos for a long time. A lot of them are rants and stuff and top tens about this and that. But the one thing that people kept drilling into my head and people's heads over and over is that one thing that sends people home quicker than anything else is people who come down here that are maybe, say, A-type personalities, very North American ideas about how things should work, and then come down here and get frustrated beyond belief that things don't happen fast enough, that they can't find all the things that they want, or that the government operates in a manner that they can't wrap their head around, and they get frustrated and go home. That they don't understand the culture here before they got here. Mm-hmm. And they moved down here thinking, I think I should be able to have sort of the same sort of things that I had back home. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing I hear over and over.
And you know what? As much as when I have to confess that as much as I came in with an open mind and ready to do that, I've had quite a few incidents where I really lost it. In patience. For example, if you ask somebody to provide you with a service, he's going to tell you it's going to take a week.
Yeah.
So in my mind, when I came here, to me, a week means 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been, confronted in situations where it wasn't 2 weeks, it was 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I've actually had a mechanic that did some work on my car that, honestly was supposed to take a week. It ended up taking 3 months.
Yeah.
And to a point where, I mean, the level of frustration goes up and up. That's maybe an extreme example, but I caught myself having to talk to myself as much as I want to live the lifestyle, and I respect it. And you have to sort of like at some point say, okay, now why did I come here? And rethink about all of this, because it's easy to get upset because there's a lineup at the bank, or because of this, or because of that kind of stuff. But the pura vida and the application, applying it in our daily life is also two different things.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm not going to lie. We've had those situations as well too. I mean, the more you have those situations, though, the more you get used to it. But the thing is too is that you talked earlier about the blue zone, and the blue zone, for people who don't know what that is there are several blue zones around the world, and there are areas where people seem to live. No, they don't seem. They live significantly longer than other people, and in this area, there's a blue zone, and people live longer than they do in North America. And that's part of the reason why people live longer. They don't have stressful jobs, but a lot of people have manual labor jobs where you work all day. You don't work at a quick pace because you live in a hot place, but you get the job done, and you work from 6 until 3. You slowly get through your day at a nice pace. You're getting exercise all the time. You're out in the sun. And that's how people live in this part of the world.
Yeah.
And that's ingrained in people, and it's the pace, and it doesn't change because you want it to change.
Life expectancy in Nicoya, which is the area that's not too far from here, is actually 96 years old.
Yeah.
And scientists from all over the world come and study the lifestyle. And you're so right. It's it's the outdoor, but it's also the value system of the Costa Ricans. Costa Ricans, like when we talk about pura vida, pure life, the simple life, it's really a way. It's not just slogans for the tourists.
Yeah.
It really is a way of lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why, like, Costa Ricans are lovely, lovely people. But if you try to push them in that pressure cooker that we have in North America, they're gonna back off, and they're not gonna appreciate that. That for them is sacred, and that is very, very important. And I think that's the secret for the longevity. How do you say that in English?
Longevity.
Yeah,
yes.
Longevity. For those people. Also in this area, the other thing about Costa Rica is we have no polluting industries here.
Yeah.
That's very important. So they say even if you move here as an expat, like pretty much automatically, your life expectancy is going to increase.
Yeah.
Because you have the fresh air, because you have the natural fruits, the natural
Vitamin D.
the vitamin D, the sun is here, more outdoor, more activities, more swimming, more whatever, more pool, and those are all great benefits.
Yeah, I'm guessing that if you're chatting with people in the Tico community here, that you don't hear a lot of stories about guy dropping dead from a heart attack or strokes or that sort of thing the way we experience that with our friends and family back home because of the pressure cooker situation about how we work and all that kind of stuff. And
So right.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have a resident here in Costa Rica. His name is Pepito. Well, Pepito lives in the San Jose area. He follows the years, so plus 20. So he's 120 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still in top good shape. He received 2 weeks ago, I think, his COVID-19 virus, and but he's still actually a very healthy man. He's 120 years old.
Wow.
Pepito. People could look it up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. And so, what are some of the other hot topics that people want to talk about on the show?
Well, I think that the other thing that we like to do on the show is, beside residency issues, is also like stories of success for people that either have been here or in Central America, for example. So people also really enjoy that because they could see some models and that actually gives them some ideas that what is possible. So if those people did it, then I could do it also.
Yeah.
And so we try to present some of the expat experiences and success at different levels, and that's pretty popular also. And we've also done some interviews and shows where we went totally out of the loop to talk about stories of bravery and courage. We've had Mylène Paquette, who is a Canadian woman who crossed the Atlantic, rowing the boat from Canada to France. So we've had people like that because I think they're inspiring people. So, we talk about, expat life, Costa Rica, adventure and courage and determination. And I think those are all inspiring subjects.
Well, they must be, because people are tuning in, right? You're getting a great response from people.
And we're getting, and actually in the last month or so, we're getting, for some reason, I'm feeling this, I don't know, how do you call that, a drive or an energy. And yes, the viewership is augmenting every week. So, and the humor is always there also.
Yeah, for sure. Got to keep it moving. Got to keep it funny. Got to keep people coming back for more.
I try.
Well, I'm looking forward to being on the show. You told me that you wanted to chat about being a digital nomad, which actually is a title that came up in 2019 when Belinda and I were interviewed by Toronto Life magazine. They introduced us and other couples as being digital nomads, which is people who can travel around the world and kind of work from wherever. So that's what we're going to be talking about on your show, right?
Absolutely. Looking forward to having you on the show, David. We're going to be talking about that. And actually, it's going to be a topic that's really of actuality. Because actually, Costa Rica is progressing very quickly now with a way of changing the laws to accommodate people who want to move to Costa Rica and work as digital nomad and being able to do it in a very legal way with a residency status and so forth. So it's a really exciting topic. Yeah,
it just sounds like that's really going to open up doors for a lot of people who are dreaming of that idea of coming down to a place like this and working. And it's interesting. The whole digital nomad thing, because a lot of people will be listening to this maybe in a couple of weeks, or maybe somebody will be listening to this in a year from now, going back through the podcast catalog and discovering older episodes. So right now we can see sort of the light at the end of the tunnel of this COVID pandemic. But the one silver lining about this whole thing, this whole horrible sort of period in our human history, is that we've learned a lot about how we live, and we've learned that we don't need to be, tied to a desk, because we've all been at home and we've all figured out how to do our job from other places. And so I think that's the silver lining about this whole situation. And we talked about this quite a bit on the podcast, that a lot of people are looking at the possibility of coming to a place like Playas del Coco and being able to work for at least part of the year like we did, because they know that it's doable now. I think that's sort of the one thing that we can take away from this whole experience that is going to be beneficial for people moving forward.
I think it has been beneficial to a lot of people. And I think, this situation with the pandemic has also given an opportunity to people to reinvent or create something new.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the whole experience. Anyway, in my case, it certainly has been this situation. I've taken the opportunity to think of new projects, think of new ventures, and have fun doing it also.
Yeah.
And I saw it as just a fun project, but really, I take life one day at a time, and who knows what Pepito life is going to become a year from now or so. So who knows?
No, it's exciting, right? You launch this thing, and it takes on an energy of its own.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I look forward to having that conversation with you. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Just one last thought on that, and that is too that the other thing that people have discovered, I think, during this pandemic is a lot of people have it slammed on the brakes, and people were able to look at themselves, look around at their family and their life, and say, is this really the life I want to be living? Mm-hmm. And that's another reason why people are kind of looking around, thinking, who else can I be in this world? What else can I do? What are my options? So we'll chat about that on the episode when I'm on with you, on Pepito Live. And I want to suggest that people, first of all, if you're going to come visit and you want to check out the area, you can look Yves up, look up Cost Tour, and chat with them about all the different packages that they have available for you to see the area, and then also just to check out Pepito live on their YouTube channel.
Yep. On YouTube, it's under the name Pepito Live Costa Rica.
Yeah, Pepito Live Costa Rica. You said you haven't been mentioning the Costa Rica as much lately because you're starting to have conversations with some of the neighboring, people from neighboring Central American countries too. So you're sort of opening it up a bit more.
Absolutely.
But the focus is mostly on Costa Rica because that's where we are. I want to thank you for coming over to crossing the street and coming over to Casa MacNeil, to our little studio here, and chatting with me today on Cool Story. So thanks again. This has been a great conversation. Once again, my guest, Yves Malette. Thank you, and all the best, my friend.
Thank you, David.
All right. There you have it, my conversation with Mr. Yves Pepito Malette. Also, thanks again to Mr. Jerry Stamp, who wrote and performed the Cool Story theme song and all the other jingles and stings that appear on this show. Do yourselves a favor and look for Jerry's music wherever you stream. Also, if you would like to support the podcast, please visit patreon.com/coolstory with David J. MacNeil to make a pledge today. Patreon being spelled Patreon.com. So patreon.com/coolstory with David J. MacNeil is where you go to support the show financially if you feel like doing so. And finally, thank you so much for listening once again. Until next time, pura vida.
Everybody's had some adventures. Everybody's had a few close calls. Everybody's got a story. What's yours?